In this PowerPoint, we will examine the work of several learning theorists and their impact on teaching and learning. We will also explore 3 learning theories and their use in shaping me into an effective educator. The learning theorists we will review in this PowerPoint are Jean Piaget, B.F. Skinner, and Robert Gagné. Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development proposes that all children move through 4 different stages of intellectual development in the same order, but not all at the same rate. The sequence of stages is universal across cultures, and child development is determined by biological maturation and interaction with the environment. Therefore, at each stage of development, a child's thinking is different from the other stages because each stage involves a different type of intelligence. Piaget's stages are sensory motor stage, and this occurs from birth to 18 to 24 months. During this stage, the infant lives in the present. It does not yet have a mental picture of the world stored in its memory. Therefore, it does not have a sense of object permanence. If it cannot see something, then it does not exist. The main achievement during this stage is object permanence, knowing that an object still exists even if it's hidden. It requires the ability to form a mental representation of the object. The next stage is the pre-operational stage. This occurs from age 2 to 7 years. By 2 years, children have made some progress towards detaching their thoughts from the physical world. However, they have not yet developed logical or operational thought characteristics of later stages. The next stage is the concrete operational stage, which occurs from age 7 to 11 years. This stage is called concrete because children can think logically much more successfully if they can manipulate real, concrete materials or pictures of them. Piaget considered the concrete stage a major turning point in the child's cognitive development because it marks the beginning of the logical or operational thought. This means the child can work out things internally in their head rather than physically try things out in the real world. The next stage is the formal operational stage, and this occurs from age 12 and up. From about 12 years of age, children can follow the form of a logical argument with reference to its content. During this time, people develop the ability to think about abstract concepts and logically test hypotheses. This stage sees emergence of scientific thinking, formulating abstract theories and hypotheses when faced with a problem. Although Piaget does not specifically relate his theory to education, it allows us to be knowledgeable of a child's readiness. Children should not be taught certain concepts until they have reached the appropriate stage of cognitive development. Behavioralist Frederick Skinner, more commonly known as B.F. Skinner, is considered to be the father of operant conditioning. According to this principle, behavior that is followed by pleasant consequences is more likely to be repeated, and behavior followed by unpleasant consequences is less likely to be repeated. Operant is used to distinguish between a reflex and a response. Skinner writes, the unit of a predictive science is, therefore, not a response but a class of responses. The word operant will be used to describe this class. The term emphasizes the fact that the behavior operates upon the environment to generate consequences. According to Skinner's theory, all learning takes place proportionally to 3 factors that he labels as contingencies of reinforcement. Learning requires a situation in which behavior occurs, the actual behavior and the consequences of that behavior. Doing, experience, and trial and error are representative of the 3 parts of a set of contingencies. Doing emphasizes the response, experience the occasion which the response occurs, and trial and error the consequences. His educational theory centers in the concept of control, and in the teaching traditional learning situation, operant conditioning pertains greatly to issues of class and student management rather than to learning content. Robert Gagne was an American educational psychologist. His ideas of conditions of learning and instructional design implications were first introduced in 1965. Gagne speculated that there are different types of learning outcomes, each two of which is best achieved through specific instructional design. However, aside from the conditions that will enhance each specific type of learning, there are also 9 events of instruction which should be the starting point for every type of learning and every instructional design. These 9 events are: number 1, gain attention and reception. The first step is to gain students' attention and motivate them to engage with the content. Number 2 is to inform objectives, expectancy. Students need to be clarified what he or she can expect. Number 3 is to stimulate recall of prior knowledge, which is retrieval. This means that prior knowledge should be activated since it is important for learning new materials. Number 4 is present stimulus materials, which is selective perception. This presents the material to the students, possibly using various learning styles. Number 5 is to provide learner guidance or semantic encoding. This means that guidance in the terms of communication enables the teacher to direct the students in their learning or enable them to easier information encoding through visual or other materials. Number 6 is elicit performance or responding. Students need practice. Practice should immediately follow instruction and be well defined in terms of its nature, objectives, and expected student responses. Number 7 is provide feedback or reinforcement. Feedback is additional guidance offering the students immediate evaluation of his or her performance, enabling them to realize their mistakes and misconceptions. Number 8 is assess performance or retrieval. At the end of each course, a student knowledge should be assessed in order to check if expected learning has occurred. Number 9 is enhance retention and transfer, which is generalization. The learning process does not end when the class does. The teacher should advise students how and in which context to apply and transfer the knowledge they just gained in the world outside of the classroom. In 1968, Gagne proposed the theory of cumulative learning based on the premises that new learning most of all depends on combining previously acquired learning and recalled material and skills, but also on the ability of learning transfer. In his own words, there is a specificable minimal prerequisite for each new learning task. Unless the learner can recall this prerequisite capability, he cannot learn the new task. The learning theories we will explore in depth are behavioralism, cognitivism, and constructivism. Behavioralism is a theory of learning which states all behaviors are learned through interaction with the environment through a process called conditioning. Thus, behavior is simply a response to environmental stimulus. The behavioralist approach provides clear predictions. This means that explanations can be scientifically tested and supported with evidence. Behavioralism is key for educators because it impacts how students react and behave in the classroom and suggests that teachers can directly influence how their students behave. It also helps teachers understand that a student's home environment and lifestyle can be impacting their behavior, helping them to see it objectively and work to assist with improvement. Teachers can implement behavioral learning strategy techniques in their classroom in many ways, including repetitive practice, bonus points, or providing an incentive to do more, participation points, verbal reinforcement, such as saying good job, and establishing rules. Constructivism is the belief that learning occurs through internal processing and information. Cognitive information processing is influenced by an internal process rather than external circumstance. The cognitive approach to learning theory pays more attention to what goes on inside the learner's head and focuses on mental processes rather than observable behavior. Changes in behavior are observed and used as indicators as to what is happening inside the learner's mind. The start of the use of computers allowed psychologists to try to understand the complexities of human cognition by comparing it with something simpler and better understood, the artificial system such as a computer. The use of the computer as a tool for thinking how the human mind handles information is known as a computer analogy. Essentially, a computer codes information, stores information, uses information, and produces an output. The idea of information processing was adopted by cognitive psychologists as a model of how human thought works. Examples and applications of cognitive learning theory are classifying and chunking information, linking concepts, providing structure, real-world examples, discussions, problem-solving, analogies, imagery, and providing pictures and mnemonics. Constructivist theorists believe that learning is a process where individuals construct new ideas or concepts based on prior knowledge and or experience, meaning learning is based on how an individual interprets and creates the meaning of their personal experiences. Knowledge is constructed by the learner, and since everyone has a different set of experiences and perceptions, learning is unique and different for each person. This theory is used to focus on preparing individuals to problem solve. Therefore, to be successful, a learner needs to possess a significant base of knowledge upon which he is to interpret and create ideas. Some examples and applications of constructivism are case studies, research projects, problem-based learning, brainstorming, collaborative learning, group work, discovery learning, and simulations. All three theories are important to understand. When deciding which strategies to use, it is important to consider the level of knowledge of the learners, the thought processing demands, and the desired outcomes, the generation of new ideas, or a single answer. The integration of technology can enhance each of these considerations by accelerating the knowledge levels of learners, deepening the thought process demands, and extending the desired outcomes.